Subtraction with regrouping tens and or hundreds. The objective is, today I will subtract within 1,000 by decomposing when needed. Okay, we're going to subtract. We have 567. We're going to subtract 278. My first step is to start with the ones place. I have to think, do I have enough to subtract? Remember the poem, more on top, no need to stop, more on the floor, go next door, get 10 more. If the numbers are the same, then zero's the game. Well, I'm looking at my ones place over here, and I see that I have 8 on the bottom and 7 on top. I know that 8 is a bigger number, so I have more on the floor. I'm going to have to go next door and get 10 more. So I go next door to the tens place and I take 1 10 from 6 tens. If I take 1 10 from 6 tens, I have 5 tens left. Then I'm going to go and I'm going to bring that 10 over to the ones place. I add 1 10 to 7 ones and I get 17. Now I can subtract my ones place. 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9. 9 is how much I have in my ones place. My next step, step number 2, is to look at the tens place. First, I have to think, do I have enough to subtract? More on top, more on the floor, or are they the same? I have 7 on the floor and 5 on top, so I have more on the floor, which means I have to go next door and get 10 more. So I'm going to move to the hundreds place. I'm not going to move back to the ones place because I've already subtracted. I already have my answer. So I have to move to the hundreds. If I take 100 from 500, I'm going to have 400. Remember to do that step first before you bring it over because a lot of you forget to record that and then you think you still have 500, but you don't. You have 400 now. Now I'm going to bring that 100 and put it with my 5 tens, and that gives me 15 tens. Now I have enough to subtract. 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. 8 in my tens place. Now I have to subtract my hundreds. I have 400 and I'm going to take 200. 400, 300, 200. I have 200s left. Remember that you have to do each step as it goes because if you go ahead, you're going to get the wrong answer if you skip a step, if you subtract the tens first or the hundreds first. Now we're going to subtract 434 from 724. First step is to start with the ones place. I have to think, do I have enough to subtract? So I'm going to look at my ones place, which is right here. I have a 4 and a 4. Those numbers are the same. So my poem says if they're the same, then zero's the game. So I know I'm going to write a 0 in the ones place. My next step is to look at the tens place and think, do I have enough to subtract? I have 2 on top and 3 on the floor. 3 is more than 2, so I have more on the floor. I'm going to have to go next door and get 10 more. I go to the hundreds place and I decompose 100. So if I decompose 100 from 700, I have 600. Then I'm going to bring that 100 over to my tens place and add it to my tens. 2 tens plus 100 is 12 tens. Now I can subtract 12, 11, 10, 9. 9 goes in my tens place. My last step is to subtract the hundreds. So I will start at the hundreds, 600, take away 400. Remember, you have to cross out the 700s and write 600 because if I didn't, I would think that I still had 700s, but I decomposed one of those, so I really only have 6. 600, 500, 400, 300, 200. 290 is my difference. All right, now we're going to subtract 187 from 316. Again, my first step is to start with the ones place and think, do I have enough to subtract? Here's my ones place. I'm going to look. I have 6 on top and 7 on the floor. 7 is larger than 6, so I have more on the floor, which my poem tells me I have to go next door and get 10 more, which is decomposing 110 into 10 ones. So if I take 110 from 110, I have no 10s left. Then if I bring my 10 over to my ones place, I have 16 ones. Now I can subtract 7 ones. 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9. 9 goes into my ones place. Now I'll move to the tens place. Again, my step 2 says to think. Do I have enough to subtract? Well, I have 0 on top and 8 on the floor, so there's definitely more on the floor, so I'm going to have to go next door and get 10 more. So I go to the hundreds place, and I'm going to get 100 and decompose it into 10 tens. So if I take 100 from 300, I have 200. Now if I add 10 tens to 0 tens, I'm going to have 10 tens. Now I can subtract my 8 tens. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. 2 is my number in my tens place. I have 2 tens. My last step, number 3, is to subtract the hundreds. I have 200 and I'm taking away 100, so therefore I have 100 left. My answer is 129. All right. Now we are subtracting 575 from 973. My first step is to start with the ones place. I'm going to think, do I have enough to subtract? Here's my ones place. I have 5 on the floor and 3 on top. 5 is bigger than 3, so more on the floor. I have to go next door and get 10 more. If I take 110 from 7 tens, I have 6 tens. Then if I bring 110 over to 3 ones, I have 13 ones. I decomposed a 10 into 13 ones. Now I have 13 and I can take away 5. 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. 8 is my answer in the ones place. Now I'm going to move to my tens. Again, I'm going to look at the tens place. I'm going to think, do I have enough to subtract? More on top or more on the floor, or are they the same? 6 is on top and 7 is on the floor. 7 is bigger than 6, so I have more on the floor. I have to go next door and get 10 more. If I take 100 from 900, I get 800. If I bring that over to the tens place and add 10 tens to 6 tens, I have 16 tens. Now I can subtract my tens. 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9. 9 is my difference in my tens place. Now I'm going to do my last step, step 3, which is subtract the hundreds. I have 800 and I'm going to take away 500. 800, 700, 600, 500, 400, 300. I have 300s left. My difference is 398. Okay, I'm subtracting 249 from 429. First step is always start with the ones and think, do I have enough to subtract? I'm going to think, do I have more on top, more on the floor, or are they the same? In this case, in the ones place, they're the same. So my poem says, if they're the same, then 0's a game. So I know I'm just going to write a 0 in my ones place. Now I'm going to move to the tens place. More on top, more on the floor, or are they the same? 4 is bigger than 2, so I have more on the floor. I have to go next door and get 10 more. If I take 100 from 400, I'm going to get 300. If I add 10 tens to 2 tens, I have 12 tens. Now I can subtract in my tens place. 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. 8 is the difference in my tens place. Now I'm going to subtract my hundreds, the last step. 300, take away 200. 300, 200, 100. 180 is my difference. Okay, for my last one, I have 630, and I'm going to take away 362. Again, I always start with my ones place, and I think, do I have enough to subtract? More on top, more on the floor, or are they the same? Well, in this case, I have 0 on top and 2 on the floor. So I have more on the floor. I have to go next door and get 10 more. If I take 1 10 from 3 10s, I'm going to have 2 10s. If I add 10 to nothing, I have 10. Now I can subtract. 10, 9, 8. 8 is the difference in my ones place. Now I'm going to move to my tens place, and I'm going to again think, do I have enough to subtract? More on top, more on the floor, or are they the same? Well, I have 2 on top and 6 on the floor. 6 is bigger than 2, so I have more on the floor. I have to go next door and get 10 more. If I take 1 10 from 6 10s, I get 5 hundreds. If I add 10 10s to 2 10s, I get 12 10s. Now I can subtract my 10s. 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6 10s. 6 is the difference in my tens place. Now I'm going to subtract the hundreds. I have 500, and they are going to take 300. 500, 400, 300, 200. 200 is the difference in my hundreds place. So my total difference is 268. What did we learn today? Well, today we learned to subtract within 1,000 by decomposing when needed. We decomposed sometimes in both the tens and the hundreds place.